They want to be able to say when we will have achieved this goal of freedom. But our notions of freedom, just as they have evolved over the last period, over the last half century, our notions of what it means to be free have radically evolved. And I expect that, that we will have to expect this idea of freedom to continue to evolve far beyond that which any of us are capable of imagining today. Thank you very much. Hi. Let's see. Can you hear me? Oh, well, do you want to use this one?
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So I must say it's an honor to be sharing a platform with Angela Davis, who was one of the icons of my time in the 60s. And I'm very thankful to Anand for inviting me. I've been interested ever since I came here in the question of race and caste. So I'll start with a few observations about what I think are the differences. You know, before I came to India, I was never a great civil rights activist, but a friend and I worked with a group of black kids in South Berkeley. And through them, we got to know a much tougher gang in Sacramento, the state capital. Now, these were the days of urban uprisings. And as they said, well, the girls would be out in front fighting the police while the guys would go around and back setting fires to buildings. At one time, a couple of them went out and tried to burn down Ronald Reagan's home. Unfortunately, they didn't succeed. But they said, well, they thought the Panthers were crazy for carrying rifles into the state legislature. Them dudes gonna get themselves killed. And, you know, they did. I think 22 people were murdered within the space of a couple of years. So anyway, it sensitized me to the issue. And I found a lot of similarities in the caste question, but also a lot of differences. First of all, I found Dalits much less assertive, openly assertive. In private, they may be even more hostile to Brahmins and upper castes, but they would not curse and say it publicly. They would not that way be public in their anger so much. I make one point here. You know, you keep saying Dalit, and we keep thinking Dalit, most people outside of India do. But in fact, as Ambedkar has said, caste is a graded hierarchy. So from Brahmins at the top, then other upper castes, and then there's a very large group that were the former Shudras, now called OBCs or other backward castes. And they were also graded up and down, to Dalits at the bottom. So although the ex-untouchables are the most exploited, others are also, but in some ways less conscious about it. So that's kind of one point. But anyway, Dalits I found, and I was most interested in them. They were the most militant and organized, and are still. Were still less assertive than the blacks I knew in the 60s. I think this has something to do with visibility. You know, race is easily recognizable, although there is passing. People can do that. But it's fairly easily recognizable. Caste is not. And you find, I think, I'd like your response to this, that this has finally lent a good deal of strength of identity to African Americans. You find that African Americans have evolved their own styles, like hip hop recently, which have then spread to the rap, which have then spread to the other communities. Nothing like this has happened in India. There's been no equivalent of a black is beautiful movement here. And Dalits will still, and lower castes, subaltern castes, will still follow the same styles by and large as the upper castes do. Like Ambedkar, you may find them wearing suits, Western clothes, and so forth. But you don't find a separate style, separate culture evolving. So this visibility has another aspect. The elite policy, race is something that's now openly discussed. The elite policy in India has been not to discuss caste. It's something that's going away. It doesn't really exist. It's not important anymore. One big example of this is the caste and census issue. You know, when India got independence, the questions about caste were dropped from the census. Well, after a long time and a fair amount of lobbying, the parliament this year, every political party agreed, the leaders may not have liked it, but they knew their voting blocs, that caste should be included in the census. What did the government do? No caste is being asked in the census, except for the SCs, the scheduled castes. Instead, they're going to have a separate counting of castes. So this is a fraud. If you just have an enumeration, you don't find out anything about what this is correlated with. Costing about 2,000 crores or more, and taking another 3 months of teachers' time. These are the actual people who do the census. So, but one sign of assertion is the fact that there's now more consciousness, at least about this, than ever before, and people are pushing it. But the elite policy of not wanting to recognize caste or deal with it is what I call the three monkeys policy. See no caste, hear no caste, speak no caste, practice it all you want, but don't talk about it. And this has been a very important aspect. The state of the movement today, I would just say a few things about, well, affirmative action. India has a more rigid system of reservation than US, but there are so many holes in it. Even where it applies, it's not really very much enforced. You advertise posts in a university for somebody, a history professor who should be SC, who should know Japanese. You're not likely to find a candidate. So many of these posts go unfulfilled. The military is excluded. The judiciary is excluded. And these remain the most Brahmin-dominated institutions. Again, nothing like opening up West Point to nothing, you don't find Dalit and very few OBC officers. Big problem. If you look at the kinds of judgments the Supreme Courts are making, and then the high courts are making, you can see this issue of upper caste dominance, male dominance for that matter. So affirmative action remains a problem in India of how to manage it. How to really, and there again, what I find is an attitude of mistrust. People, Dalits will tell me, it has to be rigid because you can't trust them. It's, I sometimes wonder how it works in the US when it's not legally enforced, but somehow it seems to work much better. If you look at the newspapers, the media, if you look at all of these institutions, they still remain very upper caste dominated. And TV, I see more black faces on American shows than on Indian shows. I mean, that way, light skin is, and this is the racist aspect of caste, light skin is still a major preference in India. And this is harmful both to, it's very harmful to women because they're often the most oppressed by this. So, I'll say something. The state of the movement today, it's about global solidarity, and this is a very interesting problem, but what I find is a kind of lack of solidarity, and I think this has something to do with the kinds of technology we have. It's very easy to get on Facebook and Twitter and all of that and make connections around the world. But that very often means that close community is getting lost. I mean, I don't know how these things actually work, but it's a fact that the anti-caste movement is more fragmented today than ever. You know, the Mundell Commission, this is a commission that came out with recommendation for affirmative action for the OBCs.